Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For silence. We have one adjustment to the agenda, which will go under item F, under new business. Did everybody get a slip?
Yeah.
Okay. Without a unified board rep. Anybody here, public? No? Anybody here? Oh, hi, Bonnie. Did you just leak it? I just know. Yeah. Anybody want to speak on anything on this agenda? No. Okay. Approval of the minutes of the special meeting on June 24th. Can I have a motion on?
I'll move that.
Moved by Robert, second.
I'll second that.
Second by Tammy. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor. The next thing, approval, did we get the financial statements?
We haven't, Lynn hasn't been back yet, so
Okay.
we're gonna wait for Lynn.
Next one is superintendent. Reintegration plan update, and I'm imagining this is this year.
Yeah, you have a handout in your packet, probably the last thing in there. I'm gonna present to you an idea of what we're thinking right now. And nothing obviously is set in stone, but we do want to make sure that we're sharing with you what we're thinking and where our mindset is with regards to reintegration. This plan is a continuation of the plan that was presented to you before. So I'm going to breeze through the first few slides because you've already seen that. You've seen our return to school roadmap and all of our plans to get to our phases. I think we presented this to you in the May meeting or maybe the June meeting. The teams that we have in place and our plan for resumption that got us through the school year. And that's where we left at that resumption phase where we got through that school year and now here we are in the next phase of the plan. And I'd like to just talk about that this evening. This is the recovery phase, and basically what we're trying to look for is how to recover so that we can get students safely back in school if possible. The phase runs through the end of the school year to the beginning of the next school year. And I'd like to talk to you about some of the components of that plan. Teacher readiness, return to school surveys, health and wellness advisory, regional COVID-19 impact, and then our communication plan, which is going to be highlighted by our parent guide that we'd like to put out before the school year. First part is teacher readiness, and we wanted to make sure that our teachers are definitely ready for the return, and that was all part of that professional development at the end of the school year. We're continuing to talk with our teachers. We've sent some surveys out about teacher readiness. We actually have our administrators, Lise and Wayne, are going to be meeting with some teacher leaders this week, and they're going to be going through some of that data just to sort through where our teachers are at with regards to readiness. But we focused pretty much on 4 aspects during that PD, and the survey is still focusing on those things. One of them is the student remote learning plan report. Every teacher completed a learning plan report on their students so that next year's teacher has a snapshot of where these kiddos left off, who were successful, who were not in remote learning, what were some struggles, what were some success stories. So that was something that we wanted to make sure that every kid had a plan on. Teachers did work on those and have those completed. The second part of that is refining remote learning. We knew that we had to use the data from the parents on what worked, what didn't, the data from the students as well on what worked and what didn't, and we had to refine our remote learning. We put together with teacher feedback some core values that are going to be released as part of our parent guide. that talks about what are some core values that we expect from students as we reintegrate school and or if we have to do remote learning again, or if we have to do a hybrid of both. We just know that remote learning has to be more evolved, and these standard operating procedures for students have to be put in place. In the same tone, we also got some feedback from teachers about what teachers expect of their colleagues. So we put together some core values or standard operating procedures for teachers as well that we'll be sharing with the staff. Again, that was all generated by teacher feedback on what they felt was really important about being there for students and all of the things that come with that, that level of professionalism, which is much different when you're essentially teaching from anywhere at any time. The third part of that is live instruction, flipped lessons. Our teachers know that there's going to have to be a component of live instruction, and we fine-tune that to Zoom, the platform Zoom. So Zoom will be the platform that live interaction will happen with students. That may change for the youngest population, where it seems like with the youngest population in pre-K and K, because it was so parent-driven, there may be, like a social media Facebook, private Facebook groups really worked well because it was all parent-driven. So there might be a twist for the lower elementary, but everything is going to go through Zoom for the majority of the grade levels. And there will be an expectation that teachers house their flipped lessons. That's a lesson that I teach, I record, and I have it housed somewhere online so my students can go watch it anytime, anywhere. That's going to be an expectation as well. And then Google Classroom was one thing that we wanted to really reiterate with the teachers, that it's important that when the parents and the students go find their content, they go one place to stop and shop first. And for those of you that have ever taken a college class, that's exactly how it is. You go to your Moodle, or you go to your your Blackboard, or you go to your one-stop shop place, and then from that place, it takes you to where you need to go. We felt that was very important as well. So all the teachers were given the opportunity to develop Google Classrooms, and they're going to continue to work on those as we phase into the fall. So those were the components of the teacher readiness process that we focused on. Then we started surveying. We surveyed teachers, we surveyed parents. So we're trying to gather a lot of data around what's happening and what people's expectations are. Some of the surveys that have gone out, the Return to School Parent Survey, the Return to School Teacher Survey, the Return to School Teacher Readiness Survey, and then the Maine Department of Education put out their own survey that we pushed out to our families as well, just so that the state has their own data collection process. When we look at summarizing, and I'm not going to go through all of the survey data, although you guys did receive it in your packets, you have more of the details. Some of the key components that I want to focus on tonight, when you're looking at the Return to School Parent Survey, and we'll just focus on Madawaska right now in the top left-hand corner, it appears that about 85% of our parents answered yes to the following question. If the governor allows schools to reopen in the fall with appropriate safety precautions and safety measures in place, do you plan to send your children to school? About 85% said yes, they would plan to send their schools. And that's very consistent across the three SAUs. You can see about 86% is the average among those districts. So parents do have an expectation that they would like to send their children to school. Of course, if you went through the comments in the surveys, there's a lot of but if, it all depends if. And unfortunately, we don't have all the ifs, that's tough to do, but what we plan to do is have our parent guide go out ahead of time so that parents can make a valid decision based on the information we have at that time. The next question that I thought was that we should highlight: if given the choice, would your children choose remote learning over attending school in person? Please know that if this choice was made possible, remote learners may be required to follow a school schedule from home. Now, this question came later in the survey, so a parent may have said yes to the previous question, but then look at this question and said, oh, well, if there's an option, what are they going to choose? And we found from this about 24% of the Value Unified students would prefer remote instruction if given the choice. And Madawaska fell right into around there as well, I think 21 or 22%. So If we were to offer the 2 tiers, because there are going to be some students who are health compromised, or they have family members who are health compromised, and they just will not feel comfortable or safe being in school, no matter what the regional exposure is to COVID-19. About a quarter of our students from this would say that they would choose remote learning. We had some successful students in remote learning, so this might be evident of the success stories that we had. It's just more data for us to consider. The third survey question that I want you to consider is from the teacher survey. If given the choice to be in the classroom teaching students or at home teaching remotely, which are you more likely to choose? And again, this question is to try to gauge, if we do have the choice, and I don't want to put it out there as teachers are blanketly going to have a choice if they have health conditions that fall in play or family members, and they're given that choice because they cannot return to school feeling confident, would they choose to teach remotely or from home? And it's a little bit variety. Madawaska is about 11% say they would choose to teach remotely if given the choice. Throughout the valley, it's a little bit higher, about 18, 19%. But we can see that there are some teachers, and they did leave comments that there are some considerations that would have to be ironed out before they can make that determination. Childcare and health are the two leading decisions when they're factoring this in. So again, we know that we're going to have some students that want remote learning. We know that we have some staff that may choose remote learning. Our thinking is that remote students will have remote teachers, and live students will have live teachers. That's a beautiful song.
Sorry.
That's right. So that's all just more information for us as we gather closer to making a final determination, which is going to be extremely difficult for any school district. Health and wellness advisory. We felt it was very important that we reach out to our local medical personnel. And so we reached out to Northern Maine Medical Center, and we came to an agreement with Northern Maine Medical Center to have a Valley Unified Health advisor. Every year, we're supposed to have a school physician just per the statutes. We felt that this year, take it up another level and add some additional services in that, and have that medical physician oversee the entire Valley Unified. So you can see the services to be provided, but just to highlight a couple: provide consultation with the school nurses, participate on the school health and wellness advisory team. That's one of our teams that is part of our reintegration plan. And that team is looking to meet as early as next week. We're just waiting for confirmation on Dr. Roberts, who is the physician who has agreed to this plan, and then advise schools on the appropriate safety measures to be implemented and maintained specific to COVID-19. So we wanted to make sure that we have constant communication with medical professionals on this. Dr. Roberts is going out on maternity leave soon, so Dr. Kristen Hart has agreed to step in her place while she's out on maternity leave. So we have coverage either way. So that was something very important to us as well, that we have that in place. And then something that we know that the department is supposed to be working on, some kind of regional COVID-19 impact. We felt that instead of waiting for the department to put out something, let's put out our own plan, and then when the department, if or when they come out with theirs, we can adjust accordingly. But we feel that we should be using our local data to make some decisions about school. So in this draft, and again, this is just a draft, we're considering that if 0 to 5 confirmed regional cases of COVID-19, when I say regional, I mean our county. So if we have 0 to 5, like we do right now, 0 to 5 to confirmed cases, we feel that all students are going to be encouraged to attend in-classroom instruction. Remote learning, though, should be available to those learners who are health compromised and or who have family members who are health compromised. We would still follow a majority of the CDC guidelines, especially with face mask wearing and or face shield when social distancing is not possible. We don't quite know yet, based on how many learners are going to be out versus how many learners are going to be in, what that does to our class size numbers. We know right now when cleaning out all of the furniture in our classrooms, a little bit different for the middle high school compared to the elementary school. I think at the elementary school, always 8 or 9 learners per room, and then the middle high school is a little bit more. So we know that we can spread them out. We're also having Mr. Anderson and Ms. Pelletier look at alternate spaces in the school that can be converted to a makeshift classroom, if need be, the library, the computer lab, the classroom that hasn't been used in years, the staff room, whatever. And if we have to have rotating staff at that time monitoring, or use our ed techs in a little bit different capacity, or even all school staff in a different capacity, we may have to do that. But we feel that if there's no exposure to Aroostook County or very limited, Maine should not be doing the one-size-fits-all approach. And I think what happens in, Miami-Dade County in Florida should not be the same thing that's happening in Aroostook County up here. So we feel that that's an appropriate first phase, if you will. If those numbers do climb, however, to 6 to 19 confirmed cases, and the reason we're doing 6 to 19, I'm just going up the next bracket on the CDC chart. So from 1 to 5 to 6 to 19, we feel that we would have to do some kind of hybrid at that time. So maybe doing shifts of students. Cohort A goes for this week, cohort B goes the next week, and then you're on a remote learning plan for the off weeks. Remote learning would still be available to those students when they're not in the classroom, or those students who, again, are choosing not to go to the classroom because of health reasons. And then 20 or plus confirmed regional cases, which would be significant for Aroostook County based on what's happened since the outbreak happened. We do feel that that may be the right time to say we're back to remote learning until that number drops again. Hopeful that that does not happen, but given what's happening in the South right now, you can never be too safe. In any case, if you look at the final column, if a student in our schools or a school does test positive, or a staff member does test positive in our school, that would be an immediate 14-day shutdown for disinfecting and to monitor the health symptoms of all people who may have come in contact with that individual. This has not been vetted, if you will, by our school physician. So when that contact is made next week as part of that health and wellness team plan, this will be presented and it may change. Right now, this is what we've come up with as a first draft, if you will. We're just tired of waiting for guidance to come from elsewhere.
Then could this be narrowed down even further? Like you're saying, Aroostook County, it's a big county. Could you narrow it down to St. John Valley?
We could say regional is St. John Valley.
Because I mean, there's 24 now in Aroostook County, there's only 2 active.
Right.
But that St. John Valley, I wish that they would break it down that way to find out.
Yeah. And they do break it down that way. You can go by community. So we can say,
They just started.
Yeah.
They weren't doing that by zip code.
Oh, okay, I didn't.
So we can use the term regional as Valley Unified.
So this guidance, none of this came from Department of Education or CDC?
No,
It's all,
this is
everything
all
that you presented here, the 0 to 5, 6 to 19 is all based on just our school policy.
correct.
Suggested school policy.
Correct. Yep, because we know that everything else is far more restrictive. I guess the CDC guidelines, Robert, would be the purple one, because we would have to reduce our class sizes to follow the 6 feet apart. And we'd have no choice at that time than to do shifts. We'd have to do cohorts of students. So that's what we have right now as that plan. Finally, the final piece of this has got to be a communication plan that we feel is going to be essential as we move forward. I think we did a really good job communicating with the public, communicating with our teachers, but we want to put a formal plan together with regular correspondence that are predictable and timely, and narrow down where you go for the information. So we're going to be having conversations with our tech team, with our admin team, looking at the best tools to use to get information out, possibly looking at a new website tool that will integrate with mobile tools a little bit better. If we have to use some of our CARES funds to make that happen, that will be part of that. But also regular correspondence that go out. I'm thinking of a Friday memo that goes out to parents and families about what to expect next week, or, you know, what some adjustments are. We think that's going to be a big part of that, and it's going to be highlighted with our parent guardian guide that we feel has to go out prior to the start of the school year, because one of the final things we'll do before school does start is have parents actively enroll their students again in either in school or remote learning, so we have a concrete number of these students are remote, these students are in classroom, and which we'll have to have so that we can figure out our staffing and how that all works. Again, these are conversations we still have to have with the teachers union about what that means, you know, in partnership with them. So there's a lot of moving parts to it, but based on initial data, initial plans, rough draft, this is what we feel is the best guidance that we can provide you at this time as things change every single day.
When you're discussing that with your staff, then I was wondering from some of the comments, because some of the people at work, if there's an active lesson being taught on the computer and the parents aren't there, they're gonna be home tonight, are you going to expect somebody from the staff to be available to answer questions to those parents that are gonna be doing the night?
All of those lessons are going to be recorded, so it's as easy as, we have a Zoom meeting right now that's being recorded, I click the record button. So once the teachers are trained to do that, click that record button, then they can go put it in their Google Classroom, and then it's there. So if the student misses the lesson, they can go back anytime, anywhere, watch it.
Now, what if the parent is just home from work and is trying to help the student and they don't understand something? Are you gonna have teachers having to get calls at 7, 8 o'clock at night?
I believe that if we have remote teachers, they're gonna be working with the remote students,
Okay.
and if we have in-classroom tutors, they're gonna be working in classroom.
That would be an expectancy from the remote people.
I believe that's the most equitable way to do it, just to expect a teacher to teach all day long,
Exactly.
then go home and
yeah.
then be teacher
Exactly.
again.
Okay. I think we've done a good job on that.
Well, there's a lot, and, you know, the summer feels like we have a lot of breathing room, but we're already midway in summer, so here we are.
And, okay, are you all set on that?
Yep.
We go on to the curriculum.
I'm gonna get it later in the agenda, Tom, thank you, just so you guys can digest it a little bit. Curriculum leader structure, I just wanted to share with you that in the past, we had curriculum leaders that were very content-based. So from MES, you would have a math leader, an ELA leader, a science leader, same thing at the high school. This year, we reconfigured our teams to be more Valley Unified based, because our needs are not going to be curriculum specific. Our needs are going to be remote learning versus in classroom versus hybrid versus, we're gonna have all kinds of new needs. So we need a new retooled leadership team. I believe you got the handout on what that looks like in your packet. Please take a look at that if you haven't seen it. But essentially, Lee's is going to have 2 leaders from her building. Wayne's going to have 2 leaders from his building. The same is going to happen with all of the other elementary and high schools in the region. CTE Center is going to have 1 teacher leader from that center. And we're going to have an elementary team made up of the teachers and the leaders and administrators from Dr. Levac, Madawaska, and Fort Ken Elementary, and the same thing for the high school. And it's going to be a partnership with the principals to make some tough determinations. This is new as central administration. It's brand new for building administration too. So it's an undaunting task to go into this new school year with so many uncertainties. We felt like providing each of our principals with leaders that they help choose from a pool of candidates is going to be the best way to move forward. So you'll see it later in our approval of co-curricular and athletic appointments, but for Lisa's building, it's going to be Julie Sear and Missy Morno that are nominated for those 2 leadership positions. And in Wayne's building, it's Jenny Bechard and Mike Taggett who are going to be nominated for that. And I think it's a wonderful way that we can focus on some new strategies that are going to be integral in helping us provide new professional development opportunities that are going to help, you know, move us forward as we try to grasp this whole new way of doing school.
The stipend that's part of this document,
Yep.
is that already included?
Yeah, Lee's budgets that in her title funds. And it was already earmarked more than that because we had more leaders. The stipend went up, but it's less leaders. Yep.
Any other questions on the curriculum leadership teams? No new business, and I hope we don't have retirements.
No retirements, no resignations, no transfers, no new hires. We do still have an opening for our bookkeeper payroll specialist.
Has
And
that been posted yet?
it has, we have several applicants. We're holding out a little bit longer to see if we can get some more applicants.
Going on to health advisor school physician agreement.
So as I presented to you a while ago, we have a tentative agreement pending your approval with Northern Maine Medical Center to have Kristen Hart as, Dr. Alexandra Roberts as our school advisor physician for the 2021 school year. I would need your approval to sign and seal.
So is this motion, you mentioned earlier, is this something that we've always had in place? We just increased the job description of it? or-
Yeah, what you've had before in place was you guys would go through the motion of making, I believe, the Northern Maine Medical, Arcadia Health Center your provider, but not a doctor specific.
Okay.
This year, the DOE wanted us to identify a doctor, a physician specific, so they could reach out and communicate with the physicians.
Okay. So is this a stipend position that we're paying to the hospital as well? or-
Yeah, we're gonna compensate the hospital at a 1/3 share between the 3 SAUs. The total savings $5,000, so your cost is $16,066.66.
Which was again part of the, that's already included in the budget.
So can I have a motion to appoint, did you say A. Roberts?
Alexander Roberts.
Alexander Roberts, the school physician.
I'll move.
Moved by Robert, second by Louis. Any other discussion? All those in favor? 2020, and 21 curricular athletic appointments.
Yeah, you have this spreadsheet here in your packet. It is the co-curricular.
I didn't get that, I got the agreement though. so
No, that's later.
That's, I don't have that.
We have some.
Okay, you have an extra one?
I think so. Actually, did not.
There might be one here, then.
I got one.
Okay, thank you.
So you can see your coaches being nominated for this year, also some different advisors and other co-curricular positions. They're not all full yet, but that's what we have at this time.
Is, with Madawaska's resignation, is
He's still willing to coach our basketball team.
You have no middle school soccer coaches?
At this time, I believe we do not have middle school.
No, right at this time, we're focusing on our high school part of it, which is what the MBA requires.
Okay.
Typically, we start middle school August 1st.
You don't have anybody from middle school, basketball, or baseball, or soccer, or anything, huh?
No, nothing for middle school yet.
Is that been posted?
Probably hasn't been even posted
Oh,
yet.
okay.
The focus is on high school right now.
Yeah, okay.
So you just need us to,
Tennis, nobody for
Yeah,
tennis?
just a motion to approve what we have so far.
Oh, okay.
I'll move.
Moved by Robert, second.
Second.
Tom, any discussions? All those in favor of the positions presented tonight?
Is it gonna be a JV girls soccer or?
It's usually based on numbers, and in the past years, we haven't had a JV, no JV schedule, and I don't know that the numbers are going to increase, yeah.
Probably not.
Okay, and we, let's see, all sports guidance approval,
That's this one.
that's this year. Any questions?
So the MPA put out this guidance for opening high school athletics and activities. There's a lot in there.
Oh,
And there's no way we can go through all of that today, but I do want to highlight a couple of things. If you go to page 3, and I apologize, those are not numbered, but there's a section called COVID response team on page 3, about middle of the page.
Yeah.
The MPA is recommending a COVID response team that's made up of your athletic director, your school nurse, your trainer if you have one, and any other people. That team has been established here. Obviously, your AD and your nurse, that was easy to put those two together because it's the same person. But I spoke with Lynn, I spoke with Wayne. They have the team together, so they already know the expectation that a lot of the forms that are in the appendix of here have to be rolled out with our coaches. You know, the daily screening, when the students are in pods, they call them. They're tracking which students are working with other students in a pod so that they're not mingling with other pods. Essentially, you're trying to keep a group of 10 kids together in training, not a whole team together. So that's part of this plan that's already in place. And if you look on page 4, return to school, return to physical activity, it talks about phases. And at the bottom of page 4, there is a phase 1 that was to begin on July 6th. We did not begin phase 1 on July 6th. What we're looking to do with your approval today is to allow our coaches to begin phase 1 tomorrow, which would be essentially just athletic training. It would not be soccer. It would be just athletic, running. It would be conditioning, non-soccer related activities. And it's not even conditioning. It's kind of a step back. It's more like kinesthetics and that type of thing. Conditioning would begin in phase 2, which is July 20. And that would continue for those 2 weeks up to August 2. So we're not talking about soccer drills. We're not talking about scrimmages. We're just talking about kids exercising, getting in shape. Again, the recommendation is to keep groups of kids to 10 groups in a pod so that if there is exposure, only those 10 kids potentially are exposed. And then beyond that phase 2, which is August 2, the MPA hasn't put out anything. So I'm not asking you to approve anything beyond what this says, which would allow our students to start conditioning under the guidance of the coach.
The coach has already been trained on this?
The coaches have this. They had it before us, of course, and they were telling us, hey, look at this. But the next step is for Lynn to meet with those coaches, and I don't know if she already has. She's already met with them. Go through the expectations, go through what you can and can't do. Yep. And what we're looking for is your approval up to phase 2. If we get more on phase 3 and 4, I'll take that back to you for your consideration at that time.
So moved.
Moved by Tom, second. Robert, all those in favor? In classroom instruction approval.
So I did present to you a while ago our reintegration plan, which is essentially our in-classroom instruction approval. I'm not asking you to approve a concrete thing. What I'm asking you to approve is for us, unless we're told otherwise, to plan for some kind of in-classroom instruction. And if we're told, between now and then that it should be exactly the CDC guidelines, we'll follow that. It'll be like a team approach or a staggered approach where one group of kids goes in and another group goes in another time. If, however, the state comes in and says, Northern Maine, you should follow a different reduced guidelines, which I think is what's going to happen based on our last, I would like to be able to offer that to our parents sooner than later. So what I'm looking for approval from you is, can we have some kids in school, barring the governor's, outlaw of it, can we have some kids in school with your approval?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was what I was gonna just suggest, I think this is a great plan, I approve, I vote for it, I would wanna make sure that we have some CDC guidance, as you had mentioned, you don't have a stamp from CDC or Department of Education on this, or your medical director either.
Yep.
If you have those 3 parties input, then
Yep.
yes, please.
And I believe right now what's stalling the commissioner from doing that is the CDC is working with them on a regional index of that. And I'm hoping
To adjust it according to the region right
Can I have a motion, a second, then I have a question? Motion.
now. Move
Moved by Robert, that we do the instruction approval.
Second by Tammy.
Second by Tammy, okay. Now my question, is there any way that to absolve ourselves of lawsuits, that if the parent chooses to have the children come to school, not wear a mask, and not follow the guidelines, they sign a waiver?
We have talked about that. The problem with the student not wearing a mask is they're not protecting themselves, they're harming the others,
The others.
which makes it a tricky situation. I don't know how far, I mean, you've all gone to Parity Shopping Save and seen the sign on the door that says all customers are required to wear a mask, yet every third customer doesn't. So I don't know what our legal rights are when it involves the safety of children. I don't know.
I talked to Brian today about that, and what's happening with Shop and Save, he says, if it was up to me, I'd be at the door with somebody saying, you don't have a mask, you don't come in. But what's happening is people are saying, I have a doctor's note saying I don't have to wear a mask. So they have to let them in. He says, my employees that are not wearing masks, that's exactly what's happening. They call the doctor, and then one employee told me about, he says, I was right there on the phone call, said he wouldn't wear a mask, not because he's compromised or anything, he just won't wear a mask. Called his doctor, the doctor said, come in at noon, I'll give you a note. So,
We are generating some face shields with 3D printers that we have in the district. So essentially, it creates a headband, and then you put a laminating shield on it. Perhaps the guys will be mask or face shield, you know, because the face shield does not restrict your breathing. But it does,
exactly.
you know, protect the other two. So we'll look more into it.
Because I do know that Dollar Tree is ordering face masks, they will not be $1, they'll be about $4. I think that if that would be an option, that you could talk to the manager or whatever.
Every week you get closer to this, you'll get more specific guidance.
Well, I was wondering, you know, if they come back, let's say that I'm a parent, I send my kid to school, they're wearing masks. Somebody doesn't have their mask, my kid comes back and has the kid, can I sue the school? That's the problem that I wouldn't want to see happening.
If we don't follow our policy or procedure, so just make sure that
We'll have to make sure our procedures
Yeah.
are in line to. It all becomes very difficult when the national government has taken a position on schools reopening. That ultimately impacts your states making their decision, because that's all tied together financially or whatnot. And then again, that's going to have an impact on you as a local community. But I think the national government has been clear. And Secretary DeVos has been over the news saying that all students should be in school. Do I believe that Madawaska students should be in school based on the current COVID-19 exposure? Yes. Would I have that confidence in Miami-Dade County? Probably not. So it all depends on where you are and what things do.
I think we need to keep the survey results in mind with all of that, but we're gonna have to have, you know, contingency plans for that student that decides to come in and all of a sudden does not wanna wear their mask, and the guideline is that they have to.
Yep.
So you know, what is the administration gonna be taking? What stance are you gonna take at that point? And those things, you know, as much as you possibly can, because hindsight is 20/20, but as much as you possibly can before that event happens, have procedures in place that this is, because there's a lot of parent comments that are, I'll send them as long as everybody's following the guidelines, and you get that one or two that don't, you know, now what's happening? So.
And that will happen.
It
You
will.
will have a child have a no mask clause in their IEP. I mean, that will happen. And then what do we do? So we've got a lot of questions that need to.
A lot of unknowns. Any more discussion on the approval plan? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All in favor. And now we have to do the addendum to appoint a rep to the Valley Unified Board.
Yeah. So, because
Ain't me.
you won't be there, and we do have a meeting next Monday.
I'll be in the audience though.
Well, she's still on until next Monday, right?
No,
I
No, I'm off tomorrow.
No,
Yeah, but no.
you are not officially done, Bev, until the election.
Yeah, the election's tomorrow. Election is
Right.
tomorrow.
I was thinking the 27th.
I was supposed to be done in June, so I've got an additional month.
You just want to get ready to-
An extra month here.
You don't know, but there's been a movement out there to write you in the ballot.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Or is it the swearing in of the new board members?
Well, one of the new board, I wouldn't put one of the new board members on there.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh.
On Tom's
Unless
comment,
it's part of the old one.
are you still on that board until the new person gets sworn in?
No, I'm done as of elections tomorrow. Because there's somebody else that's been sworn in. But like I said, I'm gonna be in the audience. I can make more noise in the audience than I can in the board. And that meeting's July 27th.
So Mr. Tom's on that board.
No, July 20th.
Tammy is,
Oh, 20, yes, yeah. 27th is a referendum.
Mr. Duval and I.
Yeah, you guys can rock, paper, scissors.
I'm up for election tomorrow.
Yeah.
I practiced spelling your name. Last name first.
My chalkboard.
Motion could be pending election results.
Is that still, that spells Snickers or Twinkies?
I like, Giselle's comment about can be pending election results, and Mr. Duval has any interest.
We can talk.
I think it'd be good, Louis, because you're in the think tank too, so that's a big thing.
Well, that's something that we need to think about too.
Well, Louis has been to the think tank meeting at least once, so he's aware of, he's getting more vibes, and a new member would be overwhelmed.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
and there's
no,
no history there.
I wouldn't want to, I'm not saying that I'd want to put a new member.
Yeah,
Sure.
you're gonna have a lot of slots to fill. I think I have 5 committees. You better add 2 members to this board.
So the meeting's on Monday, then?
Meetings on Monday.
20th. She said,
In 4K.
And who's already on that committee? Tom's on?
Tom.
You too.
Make sure everyone's there.
are you going? Okay, did somebody nominate me?
I nominate.
Louis? Second to the nomination of Louis to the Valley Regional Board.
Second.
Second by Tom. All those in favor, I'm not having discussion because I'm afraid he's gonna turn it down.
There's
All
less
those in favor, quick. Louis,
There's less meetings for Valley.
thank you, Louis.
It's once every 2 or 3 months.
See, we don't just volunteer when you're not here.
Yeah, I see.
But then that's not what I'm thinking, so that's an additional, so.
Before we adjourn, I just want to make a statement. I'm gonna miss you guys. I've enjoyed working with you. You've been a great board to work with. And the administrators, and then even if I didn't like you because you left out as a principal, I've changed my mind a little.
Wow.
I like you. But I just would like to tell you, I've enjoyed my 1-year tenure, 8 years later. And I wish you all luck. I wish you, you've got a big, big job ahead of you, especially with COVID. And I have a lot of confidence in all of you. I know you're gonna do a good job and you'll be there. And like I said, I'll be in the audience at all the meetings, so. Anyway, good luck. Have a good next year, open up and everything.
Gotta be a better year than the past few months. I just want to remind you all, when we're done with tonight's meeting, we need you to sign
Just one form.
one form real quick, so don't run as soon as the meeting's over. Just gotta sign something
Can't believe that. You'll be signing up for another term?
right now.
Okay,
We need a
motion to
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn to
No, to recess.
to recess.
Louis?
Recess,
To
yeah.
recess, sorry, yeah.
Recess and reconvene at
The high school and then we'll reconvene after.
Second.
Motion by who?
I'll second.
Second by
Louis,
Robert.
Louis,
All those in favor? And it's 6.